Welcome, everybody. I'm Noreen Savage, and this is Starting Out Bright. Thanks so much for being here. And before we get going, I just want to let you know a little bit who I am and who I am not. First of all, I am nobody official with Bright Line Eating, but the program has done a lot for me. I got started in 2019 with a very simple thing. My friend Lori posted on Facebook that she had lost 57 pounds with a program called Bright Line Eating. And if anybody was interested, they could just shoot her an email. And so my hot little fingers got over to Messenger as fast as they could. And Lori proceeded to tell me that there was a book by Dr. Susan Pierce Thompson called Bright Line Eating. And in the book are described 4 bright lines that you don't cross: no sugar, no flour, 3 meals a day, weighed in measured portions. And when Lori told me that, I was sunk. I thought, there is absolutely no way that I could do all of that. But she assured me that I could. We later got together for lunch, and I learned more about the program. And I left with the thought of 2 things: getting the book and getting into the online community. At that time, it was a private group that she was aware of and was in. We Eat Bright with Lines. It's still going strong. Now we have Starting Out Bright connected with these Zoom chats, but there are many other groups and many recipe groups and just all kinds of communities that are on the internet just for the purpose of being together doing this. But I got in that community, in that online group, and I just sat and watched and was amazed by the transformations taking place before my very eyes. Then and now pictures of people losing weight, and not just like the 10, 20 pounds that I was doing every couple months, but 50, 100, 150 pounds. And for the first time in a long time, I felt hope rise in me, because where I was at was 270 pounds, 5'2". That's a lot of weight. My knee was just in debilitating pain, just excruciating. It was hard to walk. I was using a cane at home. I was too proud to do that at work, but I was hobbling along at work, using a cane at home. My back hurt. I snored. I had sleep apnea. I knew I was pre-diabetic, but I was too afraid to go to the doctor to find out. And so I was a mess. And so I felt hope. And I promised myself that if I lasted 1 year, I would do what my friend Lori did. I would post on Facebook and put myself out there and help anybody I could. Well, I did finally get started a couple months after meeting with Lori, and that was July 2019. And so when the year came up, July 2020, here we are, pandemic mode. I'm sitting in the chair right behind me, getting ready to post, thinking, what am I going to say? And I'm a Christian. I felt God say, Noreen, you can do more than that. You could connect people. Here it is, the time of Zooms. If you could just connect those who inspired you with those who need the help and the hope, wouldn't that be great? But who would come? Who would come and tell their story, and who would come to listen? Well, I'll tell you, it's people like Rexanne who are willing to share for the one. And I tell you why the one, because when I did get started, it was like a week after that first year anniversary, I went back to my friend and I said, Lori, I had no idea who would come. And I said, Lori, when I asked you about the program, how many others reached out to you? And she said, Noreen, you're the only one. I'm the only one? And it just made it so simple then. I only needed to talk to one. And I felt God will do the rest. And so this is for the one who needs to hear, and everybody else who's come for the ride. So we're all here to be inspired and encouraged and find out more about you, Rexanne. Welcome. And I feel so grateful to you. We got a chance to talk the other day, and you're a busy lady on the road mostly these days. But welcome to Starting Out Bright.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you for asking me. I am just, so pleased that you asked. And before I even get started with my story, I just wanted to thank you for what you do. I think you're priceless. And you may have only been it wasn't until recently that I found out that you were the only one that, reached out to her. But, oh, there are countless that you have touched. So yeah, you're the one that has made that ripple effect that's really spreading out very, very far. So, but
thank you for
we know that too, but you are priceless.
Well, Rexy,
you're very, very appreciated.
Thank you so much. The other day when we talked, and this is where I like to start, is if you want to go back as far as you want to tell your story. Because getting into bright line eating is not like, oh, I just think I'll do this. It's usually after years. So go back as far as you want to bring us into what really brought you into bright line eating.
My story goes way back into my childhood. And it wasn't until I actually got into bright line eating, though, that I found out what my past had to, my childhood had to do with, my eating or my disordered eating, perhaps. But I grew up in a home with two alcoholic parents, but they were very functional alcoholics in that they had very well, established careers and jobs, and they held those jobs very well. But on the weekends, that was their binge time with alcohol, their party time. And they definitely had, were very, very much engaged in their own addiction on the weekends. But on Sundays, that, I guess, looking back on it now as an adult, perhaps that was their sobering up day, because they knew they needed to get back to work on Monday. And so Sundays were a very, very special day in my life growing up. But my mother was a phenomenal cook. She was just Southern lady, but just a phenomenal cook. And she was had the gift of being able to look at a recipe, and she could tell you if it was worth making, or she could tell you what you needed to tweak it or what you needed to add or delete to make it even better. So anyway, she would make these delicious dinners on Sunday, and we would enjoy these dinners. And this was during the era when it was like The Wonderful World of Disney was on Sunday nights, Bonanza, some of those great, great classics. And so our family would enjoy this time together, and we would enjoy this amazing dinner, but then she would also, fix these amazing desserts. And we would sit in our family room and enjoy the time together as we watched these old classic shows. And I looked back on that and realized that that was like my happy hour, my unbelievable happy time in my life for the entire week, because that's how I rationalized that that's what a normal family did. This is what a family was supposed to do, sit around a table and enjoy a meal, sit around and enjoy, each other's company in the evenings. So, but I quickly realized that food became my comfort. I substituted food for love at a very early age. And it became that solid foundation for up until even, I joined Bright Line Eating. But what happened also is that, after my husband, we married very young, had started having children at a very early age. But when he graduated from college, he became a commissioned naval officer. And so once he became a naval officer, he was deployed all the time. And we had this little family going. In fact, I had 4 children in 5 years. And so I had all these little people, and so my husband was always gone. He was always at sea. And so in order to, for my own sanity, I would put all these little people to bed pretty early so that I could have my time, that I would just be able to, like I would say, recharge my batteries. And, my adult children now laugh and say, Mom, we weren't sleeping. Well, of course I knew they weren't sleeping, but I didn't care. I just wanted them out of sight and out of mind for just a little bit, Yeah. I mean, I did all the, the dinners and the bathing and the pajamas and the stories. I did all of that, but then it was like my time, but during that time is when I ate, and food once again became my friend and my comfort, and substituting love or the loneliness that I had. And so I would just have these great, one member parties that I would have with myself. Now, as I was having these children, I would always gain like 5 or 6 pounds, sometimes 7 pounds extra that I never lost. And so when I have 8 children, so when you add these up, it was a good 45, 50 pounds over, and I would go on every diet there was. I tell people I was like the poster child when you would check out at the grocery store. I mean, if there was a front page magazine cover that had the latest diet, I bought that magazine because that was going to be my ticket to success. I mean, I was going to try it. This was it. This was finally my answer. I was going to lose the weight. So I have been on, I don't know how many diets. I couldn't even begin to count. And the other one that was very classic at that time was Weight Watchers. And that is really a diet that I wish I could even begin to tell you how many times I joined and rejoined, because I was going to do it. I was going to do it. And it wasn't until after I got into Bright Line Eating when I realized that I would have never, ever been successful in Weight Watchers. Because I guess the comical side of this is that if you've ever done Weight Watchers, when you have the little checkout, or when you actually even can, register and, pay or whatever, and, do your little weigh-in, they always had that counter full of treats, your Weight Watcher treats and snacks and whatever. And so I would say, oh, I did really good this week. I did great. I can buy this, I'm going to have this. And would eat the whole stinking box before I even got home, and it was like, and so, but what I realized is, like I said, I would never, ever be successful with Weight Watchers because of the sugar and the flour that were in whatever processed stuff that, that they put in these, chemicals that make us addicted to these foods anyway. So I know I would have never, ever been successful with Weight Watchers because of what I was, continuing to eat. So anyway, I continued that journey for a long time and never did get down to, my pre, weight I had when I had my first baby. Never got down to that. And then what happened is the big catastrophic thing in our life. In 2003, my 19-year-old son took his life. And we didn't see it coming. He had no signs of depression. His girlfriend broke up with him. And there were some other, things that we can see now, but we didn't see, have any warnings or any signs that we saw that this was coming. And so as you can imagine, this was the most horrific thing that has ever happened to, to me and my husband. But what happened because of that is that I had always used food as as my comforter, my crutch, my friend, whatever. So I leaned real hard and heavy into food, immensely into food. And so that's when I literally gained 100 pounds. And I gained 100 pounds probably within, maybe 12, 14 months, 16 months, something like that. And of course, I was, devastated that I had gained all that weight, but I was also in a catastrophically grieving process also. But what I realized is that food had literally turned on me. Something that I had used for comfort and, my friend and so forth had suddenly turned on me. And in that I became sick. I became pre-diabetic. I had hypertension. I started accumulating prescriptions, I had, as you spoke about your knees and your pain. Oh my gosh, did I ever have that, So I realized that I was collecting these prescriptions of the pre-diabetics, and the high cholesterol and the Celebrex for the knees. And it was just, it was just, and that was the other, you're feeling bad and feeling horrible and dealing with all this. And then you just start piling on all these health problems too, that just seems to, make everything just, tenfold, 100 times, worse. So anyway, how I came into BLE though, is I was visiting, I have a child that lives out in Utah, and I was visiting, and I was in a granddaughter's bedroom sleeping on the bottom bunk, which is not very comfortable. So I wasn't sleeping very good. So I was sitting there, somewhat in the middle of the night almost, I think. But I had my laptop, and I don't know how Susan found my email, but this is one of those things where I call it the Lord's tender mercies, and will forever and ever be grateful, because she speaks of that mass email that she had to send out and create before she put that book in, got it published. And so for whatever reason, or for however reason, I was part of that mass email list. And so she sent out that the food freedom videos. And I sat there that night and just kept watching those videos. And I, to this day, remembered as if it was almost like this afternoon, because I could not believe what I was watching, because it was just the floodgates just opened, with emotion. I started crying because it was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense to me, and I didn't know that you could be so addicted, addiction to flour and sugar. Now, of course, I knew sugar was not good for you. And of course, I always tried to cut back and,
Right.
scale back and do whatever I could. But I didn't know the magnitude of the addiction that sugar, and most definitely flour. Didn't know you could be so addicted, to sugar and flour. And so when I listened to those videos, it was just like, oh, and first of all, I thought, when did she live in my house?
Right.
When were you there? Because I didn't ever see you. Because everything that she was saying is like, yes, that's me. That's me. That's me. That's exactly what's happening. So anyway, so then after you listen to the food freedom videos, then she does her wonderful sales pitch for the boot camp. Well, this was at the time in 2017 where it was $1,000 for the boot camp. And I thought, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to do that? But I also knew it was in the same breath. It was like, how can I not do this? I thought, I can't not do this because I have finally feel like I've got hope for the first time. And I feel like I've got, this answer. So I did. I talked to my husband about it. And so, but anyway, I joined that and I did really well. I had a lot of success with the boot camp and with following on. And I joined the Bright Lifers, after that. And so, I continued to lose. I was having great success, but then all of a sudden things kind of turned because a couple of things happened. People started noticing all this weight that I was losing, and I was getting all these compliments. One thing led to another is that I didn't have any clothes that fit. So I was out having literally buy clothes that would fit me. And so that was fun. That was exciting, buying new clothes. The compliments were, of course, wonderful. So I started getting really complacent with myself. And I started allowing little exceptions, here and there. And when one exception began, another exception would fall into place, and it just started on a slippery slope. And for instance, I'll give you I can remember the day that I totally justified corn chips because I read one thing. I was in Trader Joe's and I looked on the back and it was organic, so that was perfect. That's good. So organic corn and salt and oil, and I thought, there's all three of those things. That's all BLE food, It's like, that's compliant. And I totally talked myself right into saying, this is a BLE food, And that began one, of the long, long journeys of research and long, long journeys of just, multiple exceptions that I would try to, force myself into believing it. I was very blessed that I did not gain my weight back. And because what would happen is if I would see the scale start to creep up, I would go immediately back hardcore weight loss program, So what I see now is that I still was so attached to that diet mentality. I did not totally surrender into the BLE, lifestyle. I was doing the BLE diet is what I called it.
Let's just talk about that for a second. Because when I'm hearing you saying you have a lot of things going on from a very young age, you're talking about, your mother and dad, they had their weekend time, but on Sunday, mom made everything right with a wonderful meal. And now you're kind of connecting food with love.
Yes.
And then you get married early. Your husband's being deployed a lot. You're there with the kids, your alone time. Food is comfort for the loneliness, solitude.
True.
Now, after your son passes away, now it's a whole new, it's almost like an escape, right?
It was an escape.
In a way.
Was, literally. Yeah, it was.
So now to try to justify what food is, you're actually looking at a program that is now you've gotten a bunch of weight off. This 100 pounds, right? That you've
put
on.
Yes.
Now you're trying to justify it like I ate corn, just a different kind of corn. I mean, I'm picturing myself just like you, Rexanne. I mean,
Uh-huh.
like I've lost 95 pounds now, and it's so easy to do the complacent thing, to be
Yeah.
like, well, it's just corn, or it's actually really potatoes in the
Yeah.
bag, you know,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So how did
Yeah.
you snap out of that?
And then
Because, and I wanted
it would
to
be
ask,
silly thing. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm wondering how often did you weigh yourself that you actually would grab a hold of yourself and not let yourself gain too much? Was it weekly or
At that time, yes, I was weighing weekly. And so when I would
okay.
see the scale inch up a pound or 2 or 3 pounds or something, I would definitely just stop everything. And like I said, I went in that hardcore diet mentality mode again. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, let's just do this weight loss program or like, and then it would slip, because then I would, the cravings was still there because I haven't fixed the brain at all. All I've done
Right.
is fix the body part with the physical part with the food. But I can remember being hungry and thinking, and I already have had my 2 fruits in the afternoon, but I would say things like, there is no way, that it's going to hurt to eat a third fruit or eat another banana. I did not gain 100 pounds by eating bananas, and so I would say, okay, I'm going to have another banana today, um, or going heavy on this, not really weighing vegetables because it was like, nobody gained 100 pounds eating vegetables. Like, you can eat
Right.
vegetables, and so you'd be heavy laden with the spoon, um, and then like I said, when I see the scales creep up, okay, let's pull the scales out and we're going to weigh and measure, or being in the grocery store and looking for the biggest, fattest apple,
So
that
your
kind of,
problem wasn't really doing the sugar and flour stuff. It was really the compliant, except for the things you were trying to tweak.
yeah,
You
yeah,
were
yeah,
you were eating BLE friendly food, but
right.
you
Yeah,
just weren't eating the
yeah,
right amounts. And you weren't on
right.
maintenance yet, I am
No,
assuming.
no, no, I never,
Oh, okay.
no, I did not get to
And
maintenance yet.
then, in fact, it sounds like if you're throwing in, like, well, I'll have another fruit, this thing called intermittent reinforcement, now you're dealing with the brain saying, well, there it is. And
Yeah, yeah,
I'm hungry, so therefore I shall eat. Then the next
yeah, I
day, trying
shall,
to pull that genie back in the bottle, it's like,
yeah,
no, it's
yeah,
not that easy because
no,
your brain
it's
is
not. And
already
once you
said,
start,
yeah,
yeah. And that was the problem, is once you start on that slippery slope, yeah, you can, like, Susan talks about, claw your way back up on the road, and get out of the ditch. And if you don't have a sure foundation of sure footing, I would just slip right back because I would constantly just find myself going back into that old diet mentality. And so, but then it was in 2021 toward the end. And then of course it was the holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas, that I just totally was like sick and tired of playing this game of lose and gain, and just, trying to stay on it. And I would think, I can't do this anymore. It's like, this is so, and you play the head games. It's like, BLE is not for me. It must be for other people, but it's not for me because I can't stay with it. So this isn't going to work. And, but I knew that I wasn't going to go back to Weight Watchers, and I knew I wasn't going to go try, some of the other things that were so popular at the time. But it was kind of like I wasn't completely, in surrender to BLE, but I wasn't willing to go and try something else either, and it was kind of like, well, then just forget it. I don't care. I don't care. Because I just can't do this anymore. And I can't keep up with this, the guilt and the shame of not being able to stay bright when I was hearing all these great stories of all these people that were just amazing, and I have my best friend in the world. She and I both, had talked about did weight things. And so when I got the book, I remember just walking and handing her the book and said, look, I found it. I have found our answer, and so she read the book, jumped on and did amazing. I mean, she lost all this weight without ever joining, a boot camp, without joining, any of the, Bright Lifers or anything. And so I was looking at that going, well, why can she do so well? And I can. And it was just so frustrating. And of course I was excited for her. I love this woman, with all my heart. But at the same time, it's kind of like, what the heck? Why can't I do it? She just, she doesn't have all this, support that I'm claiming I have to have, and still not doing it. And it was just so frustrating because I just couldn't stay with it, just couldn't stick with it. So anyway, so I was beating my head against the wall, so this is the end. And so then it was like, okay, January 1st, this is once again, diet mentality. So I was thinking January 1st, 2021, 2022, I am all in. I am all in, and I got out, and got new journals and got new, everything that I thought, new pens. I mean, you name it. I was playing all that diet mentality crap, just everything you can imagine. And so it's like, yes, 2022, that's my year. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. But for whatever reason, on December 26th, I was driving home from church, and I was just so sick and tired of being sick and tired. I had literally reached my bottom, is what I called it. And I just totally, I started crying on the way home. I was in the car by myself going, I can't do this. I can't do this. And that was what I call my surrender moment. And when I talk about that, in that I finally allowed what I knew I needed, is I call him my co-pilot, and that's who Christ is for me, is my co-pilot. And it was such a hard thing for me, Noreen, because I have such a wonderful relationship with the Savior, and I have all my life, literally all my life. And one of that is because as a child, being raised with these alcoholic parents, I developed, this, even as a little girl, just this amazing friendship with him, because there were times when I felt afraid, I was scared, and I was alone or whatever. And so I just knew I could always turn to Jesus. I mean, that was like my best friend. And but I never thought I could turn to him for BLE or for dieting, because I kept thinking, it's just food. It's only food. Everybody eats, and I'm thinking he's out saving the world, or he's got all these other problems that are, catastrophic things that are happening to people that I kept thinking, he needs to be with them. I can figure this out. You just go do what you got to do, because I know that's more important than my food, and but it wasn't until that day I totally surrendered and realized I am just as important as anybody else on this planet, and he wants me to be healthy and strong just as much as he wants any of these other things that he's healing or doing, And so that was at that moment where I realized, well, first of all, I realized that I could not do this without him. I knew I couldn't do it without him. And so to be able to surrender and say, okay, I turn it over to you. I'm yours. I'm yours now, because I can't do it anymore, And so it was just that moment that I thought, okay, this is it. And so when I talk about him being my co-pilot, in the mornings, I have what I call our staff meeting. It's just me and him. And I think, okay, this is what I got planned today. What do I need to do? What can you help me with? How can we do this? And what more can I do? And then in the night, I return and report and say, okay, this is where I messed up. And this is where I should have leaned in more to you, and this is how I could have done better, or it's most of the time it's just massive amount of gratitude that I see where he literally came in and helped, and was definitely had that moment of like, okay,
I just love that so much. And I can say from my own experience that decades of dieting, almost 30 years of dieting. Mm-hmm. I don't know that it crossed my mind to ask God to help me with the diet, because I had this thing, it's just food. Like I should be able to have a handle on this. And it was just such a lonely trip of doing diet after diet by myself. I mean, I joined Weight Watchers 2 times, but even going there, it was like a once a week thing. We mostly talked about the foods you could buy at the store in that particular meeting. And it was just a lonely existence of dieting, because I was figuring it out in my head all the time. I just love this because I'm praying anyway, but never really thinking about, let's check in here. Like really analyze.
A couple of things. A couple of things helped change that for me is that I knew I believed in Christ, there was no doubt in my mind that I believed in Christ, and I knew he was all powerful and all capable. I mean, I knew all of that. But it was always like I knew it for other people. I had seen miracles and I had testimony of miracles in people's lives and stuff. So I had to come to that I had to believe Christ. I knew I believed in him, but I had to believe that it was for me, and what kind of helped me with that is I'm a mom, and as my children have, grown and become adults, and, but even when they were little, I thought, oh, I would be so hurt if I thought you were keeping something that you needed help with and you just didn't want to bother me, And when I realized that, oh my gosh, my children can come to me for anything, and I mean, I may not be able to solve it, but I can certainly be a great listening, I tell everybody, it's like, yeah, I've got soft shoulders. You can come fall on me anytime. And but that was one of the things that helped me too. It's like, oh my goodness, if I thought my children just didn't want to bother me, because they just didn't want to, think I needed to have something else added on my plate or whatever. It's like, oh, that would hurt, So it's
Well,
kind of like, why am I denying Christ?
From the other day when you were saying about after Daniel's death, you said you felt Christ around you, like basically picking you up off the floor at times. Here you have small children still in the house, and you have to.
Well, that is most definitely true. There were so many times when I was just this heaping, sobbing mess on the floor, and I knew it was him that literally surrounded me and picked me up and stood me up so that I could go fix breakfast or go get a kid on a bus or drive them to school or whatever was needed that day, because I still had children, 3 that were still living at home. So, I mean, like I said, though, that was more affirmation that I knew he was there for me and that he knew me by name, that he was very, very much aware of my circumstances. Oh my gosh, I knew that. He knows exactly where I am all the time. So that was great affirmation for me that, if he's there that intimately with me, that he can be, there for the food too.
I really liked how you said it the other day, that you look at your program in 2 parts. The secular side is the actual blueprint. This is the weight loss, or if you're on maintenance, this is the plan. Yes. This is, it's the blueprint. But then there's the spiritual side. And, when we talked and you had said later on in life, after your father had passed away, your mom went through 12 step. I actually thought that's what you were going to say, is that the spiritual side came from 12 step, but this was on your own, that you just incorporated this way of life into your program. I just think it's just beautiful.
Well, we all know Susan's a brainiac. I mean, there's nobody that knows the science of food addiction more than Susan. So she is definitely, like I say, she gave me the blueprint for success. She's got the proven program. I mean, like, there's no way I would ever do anything else. Why would I, when I know this one is the right one and the only one for me? But I knew it was missing a very, very important component, and that was the spiritual side. And when I've linked them together, it has made all the difference in the world to put them together, to make it, not just the secular monetary, but the spiritual program too.
And so since then, you have continued to be successful in the program, and you're getting closer to maintenance right now, right?
Yes, but I do have what is known as finish line anxiety. I've gotten to a number on the scale like 3 times, and I just panic, or and I don't know what that's about. And 2 weeks ago now, I actually joined Everett's Parts Work course, that peaceful eating course that he, rolled out, a couple weeks ago, because I'm really at a point in my life where I really feel good about the food. Last year was an amazing journey with the food, with, putting that spiritual component with the food. But I know that there's still that missing link with this part of what this finish line anxiety is all about, so I want to tap into that and find out what it is and heal it, and then move on in, to the
and it's not
actual
like you
finish.
haven't done any inner work. And just from our conversation the other day, you heavily leaned into journaling after Daniel passed away. Can you talk about that and what became of that?
Okay. I've always been a journal writer and have enjoyed writing for, ever since I was really a young adult, probably. But literally 7 days after Daniel died, I started a journal, and it was a place where I would go and unleash my deepest, rawest emotions. And I would just write pages and pages, and I would just purge all this feelings and all the stuff that I had. And so when I was in therapy, a year after, I think it was about a year after he died, I was in therapy. And so I mentioned something that I'd written in my journal. And so she said, well, why don't you bring your journal in next week? And let's talk about this. And I think I shared with you, I don't remember what the entry was. Sometimes I wish I did, but I don't remember what it was that we were focusing on in that particular therapy session. But anyway, when I got through reading whatever this entry was, I looked at her, and she just looked at me with this look, and she says, Rexanne, you've got to publish this. And I said, what? And she said, you've got to publish this. And I said, you're out of your ever-loving mind. I said, this is my deepest, rawest grief here, She says, I know, sweetheart, but she says, you need to publish this. She said, there's nothing like that out there. She said, there's a lot of books written on suicide that are written from professionals and from therapists, but it's kind of a sterile viewpoint. And then there are also some memoirs of people that write of loved ones who have died by suicide, but they are trying to capture the memory from past, time and, memories. But yours is ongoing. She says, this is started writing 7 days after he died, and this is now over a year, and you're still writing, so this is just an ongoing journal. And so I said, I'm sorry, but there's no way I could publish this. I can't imagine putting this out. Well, she mentioned it to me. In fact, that very first day, I remember walking to my car, almost kind of like laughing, but there is no way. She is crazy. There's no way I would ever think about this. And so there was a couple of more times that she mentioned that. And one time she said, all right, Rexanne, she says, if you could help one mother, would you publish it? And it just felt like this dagger, like right to my heart. And I went, oh my gosh. Oh, why do you have to say it? Because that was what I was doing after Daniel died. I was going like into every bookstore. I was on the internet. I was searching everywhere, Noreen, everywhere, because I wanted to find just one mother. I wanted to find one mother that had survived this, the suicide of her child, because I knew if I could just find just one that had lived through this, that would give me some kind of hope, because I was just sure I was going to die, because I had no clue that your heart could be that broken and you could be in that much literally physical pain and still be living. I had no clue. I just knew that I had never experienced that much pain. And I literally thought I was going to die. And so that was my thing, was I just wanted to find one mother who, that had lived. And so when she put it that way, if you could just help one mother, I went, oh. And that's all I could think about. I was like, okay, maybe, And so from that moment on, it kind of turned its head. And I thought, okay, let me look into this. And so there would be nights when all the kids were in bed, my husband had already gone to bed, and I'd go into his office and I would literally start transcribing this journal onto my laptop, literally, daily entries. And there would be times when I'd turn around because I would feel like there was somebody behind me. And I thought, oh, it must be Daniel. Daniel must be wanting me to publish this, but then it got to where it was, I don't want to get too, into this, like woo kind of stuff. But there were other times when I really felt like there were people in the room with me. And I thought, these must be other children. These have to be other children that they want this book published for their mothers or for their, for their loved ones,
Yes.
So that was the driving force that kept me to keep translating. And so my publisher put it in chapters because he thought it would be easier for the reading than just having straight daily, entries. And I shared the story with you. My journal had only been out like maybe a week or 10 days. And I got a call on a Sunday night. It wasn't even really late. It was like 9 o'clock. But the guy that was calling was apologizing pretty profusely. Well, first of all, he asked, was I Rexanne Williams that had written the book, Searching for the New Normal? And I said, yes. And he said, well, I just had to find you. I apologize for calling so late. And I said, no, you're not calling late, And he goes, I just had to find you. He says, I just finished reading your book, and for the first time, I think I'm going to live. And I went, whoa, And he said, my son, 32 years old, died in a very tragic ski accident in Vail, Colorado. And it was 6 months ago. And not until I've read your book did I think I was going to live, but now. And so that was the first of many stories that first night that man called me. It was like, okay, I published it for a reason. And since then, I've had just so many sweet, amazing stories of, people that have called that have so appreciated. Because the book, I tell people the first couple chapters, they're awful. They're just as raw grief as you get. I mean, there's no way around it. But if you can get through those first few chapters, it does get easier in the fact that the book gives you hope, and it ends with a lot of hope,
Well, I'm being asked what the title is, and it's called Searching for the New Normal. Searching for the New Normal. And
if you're doing it on Amazon, sometimes it's easier if you just Google, if you search my name, and then it'll come up immediately if you do my name first.
I'm hearing from Karen, it's such an amazing book. It has helped so many people. And when her daughter died, it helped her so much. I'm so sorry for your loss, Karen. Yes.
Yeah.
So
that was the big thing, though, was that was also part of the healing, is that I've now, there's a community college in Virginia Beach that's a psychology course that has a unit on death and dying, but they also, as you would imagine, they do a unit on suicide. So I've been asked to come and speak to that college class several times, just to give a survivor's story, how, what that involves. So there's been a lot of things that have come, from that book, that's just.
I am so glad that your therapist had the foresight to even put that out there. And that you took the reins and continued, because that couldn't have been an easy project to do. But I hope now that you see it was a labor of love, because it's affected a lot of people.
Yeah. And that's the gift that I have now, because it served exactly why I wanted, or why I'd even considered doing it. And that is the love letters and the love notes that I get from people that, have found so much comfort in the book, so that's.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that, because here you are, you've gone through this loss, you've done inner work on that with the journaling, and that you got some therapy and all that, but now you found your way. You found that God is a big part of your program. So now, if I want to go into the nuts and bolts, the day by day kind of stuff, because for one thing, I was trying to track you down with traveling.
Yeah.
How are you managing that? How do you travel with BLE? Can you?
Well, that was that other thing, is that before I really surrendered last year, is that I was constantly, with my husband's job, he does do quite a bit of traveling. And so now, with being an empty nester, it's easy to travel with him. The hotels are paid for, rental cars are paid for. So a lot of times it's just my airfare, or sometimes it's close enough that we just drive. So it's just a nice, getaway. But what was happening is that I would go to these places, and then I go, oh, well, I'm out, I'm just going to order what I want, and I'll get back on program when I get home tomorrow or the next day or whatever. But I reached a point when I came to this total surrender. It's like, no, you're going to figure this out, because you are not going to give up traveling. You have no desire to give up traveling and going these places with your husband. But you're going to figure this out, because there are countless stories of people doing BLE while they travel. So let's just figure this out, And so I did a lot of, researching in the community, talking to people, getting suggestions, and then it was a lot of, trial and error on my part too, just figuring out what wouldn't work. But one of the things that I was so amazed, that I think was my biggest obstacle, is I was afraid to ask. And that was like in the restaurants. I was, thinking, oh, well, it's not on the menu, or, oh, I don't want to put them out, or, that's not going to be an option. And so I remember one time we were traveling quite a bit. And so you can always find the classic salad, the classic, with the grilled chicken, right. So, oh my gosh, I was eating that night after night. And it wasn't that I didn't like it, because I do like it, but it was kind of like, oh, I feel like that's all I've eaten all week. And so I remember looking at the menu, and there was pork loin on the roasted pork loin on the menu, but it was served in some other kind of, combination that would not be BLE compliant. But I remember asking the waitress, I said, is there any way do you think the chef would allow the substitution for this grilled chicken to do the roasted pork loin? And so of course she looked at me and was like, I've never heard of that. I haven't ever heard that, but she said, sure, I'll ask, and I said, well, what can it hurt? And so she came back and she was so cute because she was like beaming, and it was like, she's, he's that helping, that he'd be happy to do that. He'd love to help do that. No problem, And so, I mean, that was the beginning of me opening my mouth, So now when two things I do is, thank goodness we live in a techno world now. So I haven't found a restaurant yet that doesn't have their menu. I mean, I'm even talking about even mom and pop diners, even they will have their menu on their website. And so I always find what I'm going to eat before I go. And the reason I do that is because sometimes I can get distracted real easy by looking at a menu. And so when I've already got my choices made, I'm done. I don't even have to look at the menu. But what I also do is I always have somebody from BLE years and years ago taught me is to have plan B. Because nothing's more frustrating than to get there and you want to order something. They say, oh, we don't have any more of that. We don't have that tonight. That's not thing. Mm-hmm. And so then you're just floundering, looking at the menu, going to grab whatever you can see, So I always go in with a plan A and a plan B that I've, found off the menu, and that's how I also find out if, substitutions, if the chef will work with me, on something. And like I constantly, I'll see a soup or I'll see something. I said, just ask the chef if he uses flour as a thickening agent. Sure enough, she comes back. She said, yep, he does. I go, okay, that's not an option then, or nope, he doesn't use that. He only uses broth, or whatever. So, I mean, I ask all the time the simplest things that could derail me, that would not be BLE compliant, because I'm finding, I don't know if it's post COVID and the restaurants lost businesses or what it is, or if I think generally people are just happy, good people. I really do. And that people really do want your business. Mm-hmm. I sincerely believe that. And so they're willing to help you and help accommodate you.
And
so
people just have different needs. They just, yes. Like yes. I know from my job or in the office, when there's an event, I mean, you have to take into consideration, some people are vegetarian, some people are not. I mean, you have to just really think broadly, like who's going to be here. We got to have food that other people can eat. Yeah. And so the other thing is I do a lot of, I love to go by car because that means I can take my cooler with me, so then that way I travel just about all my meals. And what I have is those little square rectangle, they're kind of rectangle, Pyrex dishes that they're probably, I don't know how about maybe 8 or 9 ounce things, but they have the little snap lids that are real popular right now, the little snap on, Pyrex lids. But I can make my meals. I can layer it. I do 10 and 10 vegetables. And so I do, well, first of all, I may do like 4 ounces of whatever protein. Sometimes I break it up. It's 2 ounces of chicken and 3 ounces of beans. It's just however I do a combination to equal whatever a protein serving is. It doesn't, sometimes it's all, some type of meat that's 4 ounces, but then sometimes it's all beans or something. So that's 6 ounces. So it just depends, whatever it is to equal a whole serving of protein. And then I do, well, on the bottom, I'll do 10 ounces of vegetables, any type of vegetables. It doesn't matter. I just have all kind of different, I do 10 and 10 at lunch, 10 at dinner. But then that's on the bottom layer. And then I layer on top of that is whatever my protein serving is. And then on top of that is either, 2 ounces of marinara sauce, 2 ounces of salsa, whatever I have, on top. But what makes it nice is when you freeze that, I don't have to worry about putting ice packs in my cooler because that is my ice packs, and so it stays cold the whole time. Hotels nowadays, they usually all have little mini fridges and microwaves, which makes it very, very convenient and nice. So, I just zap that in the microwave for a few minutes and I add, some type of fat. I love Costco. They have these little 2 ounce little like tub containers of avocado, which is my perfect, fat, so I just throw that in the cooler also, and it stays, cool. And after I've heated up my, my little dish, then it's perfect for, the add the fat. Another thing that I have found that has been a really game changer for me is if I'm going somewhere and I don't have access to a hotel room and I'm just traveling or going and I'm just going to be in the car doing whatever,
But when you showed on my slide, that's that little thermos that I ordered from Amazon. And I travel with that. In fact, tonight I used it. In fact, my husband, when he left to go out, he took that to the car just to go ahead and take it out tonight. But one of the hacks that I learned is that you fill it up with boiling water and you just let it sit on your counter for like, 5 minutes. And while it's sitting there, I put my other stuff together. But what that does is it heats up your thermos and gets it ready for the hot food you're going to add. And all that does is just keeps it so it'll stay hot a lot longer. So that's been a huge hack.
That really looks like a nice little thermos. It said 27 ounces. So I'm thinking it's kind of like that.
It's kind of squatty. Yeah.
And I'm thinking it would be good for the cold too, because it's stainless steel.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
I think that's on my birthday wish list. It's a couple months out.
Oh, God. It's a good thing to have. It's a really good thing to have. But what I do is that you can just, like those things that I layer up, you can do your vegetables, your meat, but once it's hot and you pour it into the thermos there, that's already, well, of course you're going to pour your water out because all the purpose was to heat up the thermos. So you pour the boiling water out after 5 minutes and then you add your hot food in. And I cannot tell you how many times I've left early in the morning and then I go to open that at 6 o'clock at night or whatever, and it's still hot. It's
That's
still
fantastic. You know what? You said something the other day that really hit me. And it was how you approach traveling, not as a nuisance, but as if you're packing your medicine.
Oh, I did. That was the other thing. That was part of the surrender, Noreen, is that my mom was diabetic and I used to travel with her when I would take her to go see my brother or take her to go, different places. But I can always remember her getting all her insulin stuff together and all her testing kit together and all the little things that we had to make sure she had all packed before we got in the car. And so I thought, you know what? My BLE meals are my insulin. It's my insulin that I have to have every day. So that's how I said my mom had to have it. We couldn't leave the house. I can't leave.
Absolutely.
And I used to feel like when we would travel and you'd do these trips with our family, because our kids were so good with, doing big family reunion kind of vacations things. And I would go, this is so stupid. And I would be mad. I would be mad. And I'd go, this is so stupid. Who has to worry so much about food? All these other people, all they're doing is just putting clothes in their suitcase and they're getting on a plane or getting in a car. No, I'm the one that's putting canned green beans in a suitcase. I'm putting apples in a suitcase. This is crazy. Why? But I was having all this, anger and been a, resentment that I couldn't just go get on an airplane with a suitcase full of clothes, But with all that surrender came so much peace with the food too. But now I love that I have my food. I love not having to worry about what I'm going to eat or where I'm going to eat, and knowing that it's.
I have to agree, because even in the beginning, when I started packing, I call it my picnic in the park lunch, which is just raw veggies. And I will have like the little 2-ounce pack of hummus. I have that.
Yes.
Actually, I think it's 2.5. And so I just have less of the protein, because hummus is protein too, but I use it as my fat. Then the rest is nuts or cheese stick and fruit. And so I thought my husband would just want to stop at a fast food.
Yeah.
He kind of just wants that too.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, this is good. I'm okay with that. Let's make a couple of them.
Yeah.
So that's funny.
Right now we're staying at this Marriott. It's up in Bethesda, Maryland, and we stay here pretty much every week because we do what we get in our church and our religion. There's a temple really close by, so we go do temple work on Friday mornings. But so what's happened though is that I've gotten so used to my routine and my automaticity. Well, for one thing, I've stayed at enough Marriotts that I can pretty well guarantee what's on that breakfast in the morning. Of course, there's a lot of stuff I can't have and won't even look at. But I can always guarantee there's going to be eggs, scrambled eggs. There's going to be some kind of big pot thing of, of oatmeal that doesn't have anything in it, which is nice. And then there's always fruit. So, that's easy. But this particular Marriott that I stay at has a omelet bar. and the little lady that stands there that makes your made to order omelets. And I have made, my order with her so many times that she sees me coming across the room and she just lights up and she's so adorable. And she goes, "Oh, do you still want your regular omelet today?" And it's like, yeah. And she knows it's just 2 eggs with all the vegetables that she wants to throw, just all these different vegetables that she throws, in there. And so it's like, okay, I even got the omelet lady on my side now, she sees me coming across the breakfast room and she says, "Oh, you're here. You want your regular omelet today?"
And it's a beautiful thing. I can't believe how the time is closing up here. I do have a couple questions for you. First,
okay.
What are some of the non-scale victories you've had? I know that you said you started out with some collecting of medicine.
Yes. Well, that's the best. That's one of the healthiest things is I don't have any medicines. Well, I do. Well, I had this even before I had gained all that weight. I've had a hypothyroidism for, decades. So I still take the one little tablet in the morning. But I don't have any, I don't have the knee pain. So my Celebrex is gone. I don't have any high cholesterol. So that's gone, and the med for, for the diabetes, that's gone. All of those are gone. The biggest victory I had one time is that because I do travel, as I remember the day that I didn't have to ask for the seatbelt extender. And I sat there and had big crocodile tears rolling down my face because I didn't need the seatbelt extender. That is the most humiliating experience that I have had with my weight, is when you got all these people sitting around you, and before you can take off, you're flagging down the attendant, and the flight attendant asking if you can have a seatbelt extender.
I remember being so embarrassed one time I didn't even ask, and I sat there with no seatbelt on the whole time.
Dear.
I just kind of tucked underneath, and nobody checked, but I felt I just felt
it's so humiliating
the whole time.
Yeah.
So all of that is so good. So good.
Yeah. Yes.
So I have one question.
The other big victory is my children accepting and knowing that this is me now, and my identity. I think I shared with you that we're on a big family thread, text thread.
Yeah.
And when we get together for events, and they'll start planning on who's going to bring what or what's going to bring. And then you'll hear somebody say, "Well, if we're going to Mom, somebody's got to sign up for dessert because we know there's none at her house, so somebody bring the dessert because we're not going to have any if we don't, so, but they just know that that's my identity now. That it won't be there.
That's so great. That kind of goes with a comment that was made in the chat here. And it is Victoria. One of the things I'm hearing is the mindset of being on a diet versus this is how I eat. And that to me is a crucial element of the eating plan. It is an identity. It is. It's not just about, it's the next best diet I could find. So, but here we are, the very last question, Rexanne, and it is with all of that you've been through, and there might be someone who has gone through just a catastrophic situation and finding themselves now that they are in a second situation with a bunch of weight to lose.
Yeah.
What would you say to them?
Try it, because I think I was so afraid to try because I'd been on everything under the sun. And I thought, this is just one more thing I'm going to fail at. And it was going to be $1,000 failure is what I was thinking, but I kept thinking, but what if it works? What if this is it? What if this is finally what it's going to take? And I knew that I had never experienced that euphoria of feeling that, oh my gosh, she's got me, because I did not know about addiction to sugar and flour. And so for that moment, it was like a feeling of hope that I hadn't had in decades, literally decades. So I would say, try it. Just try it, because a couple of things happens when you can calm down all those cravings, most certainly the sugar cravings, is how wonderful your food tastes, and especially fruit. That was just mind blowing. That was mind blowing for me that could be so, just unbelievably decadent, and decadent and delicious that I had always, decades and decades missed out on the flavor of some of this amazing, flavors of food that I had numbed myself with, with all the other stuff that you eat.
It's like you can have a curiosity with your food.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah.
instead of just
And
more,
can I add
more,
one
more.
quick thing?
Yeah,
Can I add one quick thing? If anybody, is thinking that they need somebody or they might want to get this book for them, please, please, please get my contact information, put it in the book. I tell everybody, I am absolutely no expert, but I do have, some time under my belt now, and so, and as I said earlier, I really want you to know that I am a safe place to fall, and you can come to me because I have, I certainly know what it's like, but I would, it's just one of those things that you feel so alone. But yeah, I am definitely put my contact. And I know a lot of people, think, well, I can't reach out. Well, just, I don't care if it's by email. I don't care if it's texting. I don't care if it's on, Instagram. I don't care how they reach out. Whatever they're comfortable with, I will meet them on their.
You're in the Starting Out Bright private group, so people can find you there too, right?
Yes, 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 yes.
I'll put the title of the book in the
Oh,
post, in the Starting Out Bright book.
And I also just want to plug too is that I don't make anything off these books. I mean, any royalties I make, I literally turn it around and I buy books. And so when I hear that somebody needs a book, I mail them a book. That's all that's for me, is just the service of
just
giving
so
more.
Wonderful. What a service. And taking this very low part of your life to help others is just really amazing, Rexanne. And my heart goes out to you and your family on the loss of your son. But I applaud you for, sharing your love, for life and for Daniel through the book. So
thank you.
Thanks for all you're doing. So with that, I'm going to close as I do each week. Thank you so much, Rexanne, for sharing your story. And good night, everybody. Good night. Stay bright. Don't let the bed bugs bite. Good night. So, Rexanne, how would you like to play 3-Question Thursday?
Oh, let's go for it.
All right. So let's talk chia. I saw on one of your Facebook posts that you're a chia seeds person, and I have no clue what to do with them. I have a bag I bought because I want to.
Yeah.
Tell me what you do.
I use them in everything. I mean, like, foods and different things I can add it because they just add so perfectly. My favorite is what you showed with that picture on the slide is I have that little plastic, little rectangular dish. I layer that with 4 ounces of plain Greek yogurt. Okay. And that's half of my protein. And then I add a tablespoon of chia seeds and I sprinkle that all over the top. That makes my complete protein. And then I take 6 ounces of the sour sweet, pitted cherries. I buy that big bag organic bag at Costco. And that's 6 ounces. And I don't even have to defrost it or anything. You can put them on top of those chia seeds, frozen. And then I just snap that lid on and I put it in my refrigerator for overnight. And the reason you want to do that is because to get the full nutritional value of chia seeds, you need to let them hydrate, because that is where you get all your nutrients is once it, expands there a little bit. So sitting in that yogurt and then with the cherry on top, it becomes very, very hydrated. So that's my absolute favorite. And it's such an easy way to add so much nutrients. I mean, they are so nutrient dense that it's that little bitty thing. And it's just amazing that it helps. I love how it is so great for your heart. It helps with, lowering your cholesterol, intestinal gut health. We're all into that nowadays, Right. That's just amazing, for that. But it's got like far more potassium than bananas or sweet potatoes, So, that's another thing you really want to watch, especially with me getting older, is that you have to watch your potassium to make sure that it's at the right levels, because that can affect so many things especially with your cardio health, So, it's just a great little dense little nutrient little thing that's just it's not utilized enough is what I'm going to
try this out. And that's just about right with 4 ounces. I'm not a heavy yogurt person. Like I can't do a full thing because I have a little bit of dairy sensitivity, but I think I could handle that much. Yeah. Okay. Question number 2.
Okay.
What other prepping do you do? I know that you talked a little bit that Well, what you got me on was the cherries. That when you told me
Oh, okay.
that day was about Costco.
Okay. They come in a big bag. And, I don't remember if it's
They're
like
big.
4 or 5 pounds, but they're big. It's a big,
Yes.
organic cherries. But I never put that bag in my freezer. As soon as I come home from Costco, it comes out on my counter with my scales and my little sandwich baggies, Ziploc bags. I immediately weigh those out 6 ounces before I ever put it in my freezer. And so most of my prepping is that I fill the little sandwich bag up with 6 ounces, zip it up, and then I put all the little, and usually I've got it down to where I'm pretty sure most of the 99% of the time it makes 10 servings. And then I put all those 10 bags inside a big gallon size bag, so I keep it all together in my freezer. So then at night, like when I'm making these little yogurt breakfasts, I can make 3 at a time very, very easily. And and that's literally, I just grab 3 frozen bags of cherries, or 3, whatever, but it's easy. Another thing that I love to do is I'll bake like 4 or 5 sweet potatoes, and bake them all up, and then I'll peel them. And then I'll put them inside of some type of airtight container. And I am retired, so I don't have to do as much prepping like for, lunches and things that, some people, I have that luxury now that I do have a lot more time. But what I do is once that sweet potatoes are in that airtight container, I just take it out and I measure, the 4 ounces, and it lasts literally all week. And it's just as fresh and delicious as it was the very first serving, So that way I already have my sweet potatoes, I do that like with oatmeal, make a whole big batch of oatmeal, and have that ready. So you just pull it out. So you've already got your breakfast, the little yogurt dish, and then you just measure, microwave just 30 seconds or whatever, your sweet potato or your oats or whatever. And that's your breakfast. It's just, so I don't have an actual, like full on meal like some people do, but I don't need it, in my life as much, with my time as maybe I would have.
So what I'm hearing is like to do partitions, like to not necessarily just all baked goods or anything, but to have like things ready. And
yes.
And that's grab and go then too.
Yeah. And Costco has a giant bag of organic mixed vegetables. I do the same thing. I just measure those out in 10 ounces, and have that ready instead of having a big giant 4-pound bag of mixed vegetables in my freezer.
What are the mixed vegetables? Are they like broccoli or what?
No, it's corn, green beans, carrots, and peas, I think. Yeah.
So that would be great for a lot of different kind of casseroles.
Yes.
Or just on the side too.
Yeah.
So
and we all know and love Shauna Murphy. And she was the one that taught me about putting, prepping and doing those little casserole dishes where you have the complete meal,
Yes.
And that's how I do that. And I can freeze, those little Pyrex dishes and those are really good for me to just grab when I'm going to travel. Because then, like I said, I put them in my cooler and that's my ice pack, and then I've already, they're already made. And one thing that I do know from traveling that I will share that somebody shared with me that has been a game changer. And I think we've heard this before, but I just want to reiterate that it is such a game changer for me, is have your 3 meals ready for the day after you get home. Sometimes you may even need, 1.5 days, but that is so important for me when I re-entry back home, is that my breakfast, lunch, and dinner are there waiting for me, that it's ready for when I get in the door,
Wow, that is really great advice.
Yeah. And somebody shared that with me, this BLE that is very successful.
Wow.
And that has been, and I can see why that has been such a, a positive thing in her program and mine too. It really makes a difference.
So one more question, and I know that you sponsor some people. I don't know how many, or if it's one at a time. What do you consider your best resource for somebody who is either trying to get on board or is brand new? What do you suggest besides the book?
I love when I sponsor people is for them to be like their nightly checklist is so important, for those habit stacks, writing your meal down. But I love when they call me in the morning and tell me what they're going to be eating that day, and then if they're struggling, they can text me during the day, whatever. But I love it at night when their kitchen's closed and they report back. Because you can call me in the morning and tell me all day long what you're going to be eating, but that doesn't mean anything to me unless you call me at let me know at night that it was a good day, or,
Right.
what happened. So that's really important for me, is to, the bookend part of the day is when they report back, that the kitchen's closed and it was a bright day, so that's, communication. And, that's the other thing I learned too, is that addiction is definitely isolation. It is, but, recovery is community, community, community. And so it's just so valuable in my program, is staying connected, so.
Well,
Very
Rexanne,
important.
what an amazing person you are. Do you have any last words for us?
No, I would just say, just stay with the program. It works. It absolutely is the proven blueprint for success. There's no need. And that's what I tell when people first join or come. It's like, your search is over. You're done. You don't have to do this anymore. You are finally done looking. And now just sit back and do the program. And and reap in all the rewards that are going to happen now,
Yeah.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
No more need to tweak either. You've got
Yes.
2 tracks going. So,
Yeah.
well, Rexanne, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for sharing
Thank
your
you.
story, for all the information, the good ideas, and thank you for playing 3-Question Thursday.
Anytime, sweetie. Anytime. Well, thank you for what all you're doing.
You
are
welcome.
very, 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 very priceless.
And I want to again put your book out there, Searching for the New Normal by Rexanne Williams. So
thank you for doing that.
Contact her privately.
Absolutely.
Right. So thanks again.
Absolutely.
And thanks.
Thank you. Good night.
Here. Good night.
Thank you,
Stay
sweetie.
bright.
Thank you.